Say you're walking around a car dealership, and a fancy car salesman comes up to you, and he points you to a beautiful-looking car. And he's a good salesman, so he convinces you to take a step inside. And now you're both sitting in the car, and you're about to turn the key, but you notice something really strange. You notice that you have no information about the tire pressure, whether the doors are closed, even what the gas level is. For some reason, there are no sensors in this car. Most of you wouldn't be too comfortable buying this car. But what's weird to me is that this is how we're living inside our bodies every single day. It's as if we're waiting for our own fuel to run out before we refill it. The way the medical system is set up today is essentially waiting for a problem to occur before we actively address it. We're being too reactive about the way we deal with health, and if we want to optimize ourselves, we have to be more proactive. And the reason we're not doing this is because we don't have enough data about our body. We're essentially chemical machines. So if a problem's going to occur, it's going to begin at the chemical level. And if we want to understand these problems and predict them from occurring before they do, we're going to have to really understand the chemical makeup of our metabolism. But we don't. And this really struck me as a fundamental flaw in the medical system. And I was really concerned by this. But a lot of that started to change when I came across the field of biosensors. So biosensors are kind of like sensors for a car, except they give us data about our own body. Biosensors essentially let us figure out the fuel levels in our own bodies, so we can predict when the gas is going to run out. And using all this data, we can optimize every single aspect about our lives. Everything from improving the prognosis of different conditions or diseases that we have, to optimizing things like our fitness and our nutrition, even quantitatively determining what's the optimal amount of a supplement to take. So how do these things work? Like I said, our body deals with the world of chemistry, but we're not very good at understanding chemistry firsthand. So we need to translate that into something that we do understand, which is electricity. So what a biosensor does is it translates different biological signals into electrical signals. And then using those electrical signals, we can detect and quantify what those original biological signals were telling us. What biomolecules, what metabolites were involved in those interactions. Now, there's hundreds of different types of biosensors. And the first ones to be developed were called chemical biosensors, because these are things that chemically interact with different biomolecules. Now, these have been around for a while, and they've got great sensitivity, and they're very specific, but they're not scalable. And the reason for that is that we're going to have to constantly keep replacing the different chemicals involved, and it's pretty hard to scale a chemical reaction. The next main class of biosensors are physical biosensors. And these are the ones that get me really excited. Now, physical biosensors take advantage of the different physical properties of biomolecules. Things like how they respond to different wavelengths of light, even high-frequency ultrasound or magnetic fields. And these are really scalable. So it seems like they have a lot of potential. Now, when we integrate all these different technologies into a single system, we end up with something called the lab on a chip. And as the name suggests, a lab on a chip has the same analytical power as an entire medical laboratory. This would be like running an entire blood test using a single drop of blood. Just think about that for a second. The implications on the entire medical industry are astounding. But for me, I always wanted to take things a step further. I wanted to see if there was something where we could be the sample. We didn't have to give a sample, we were the sample. Could we perform some sort of analytical test on our own bodies, completely non-invasively? Not only that, could we get this data in real time? Right now, some of the biggest issues is in getting enough data. For example, people with diabetes have to sample their blood at least 5 times a day to get a good measure of their glucose fluctuations. But the issue is, people don't do it enough because, one, it's painful, And two, it's not very practical to do all the time. So I looked around, but I didn't see anyone actively working on this solution who was actually getting good results. So I started the company Synex Medical with a mission to make this a reality. And at Synex, we're developing technology that's going to allow for non-invasive blood metabolite monitoring in real time. And the way we do this is we look at the very fundamentals. If we look at what a particle is from a quantum mechanical perspective, we see that it has a property called spin. This isn't like the regular spin that we encounter in everyday life, like spinning a basketball. It's more of an abstract property that we assign to particles based on how they respond in different environments. Now, if a particle has a charge and it has spin, it has something called a magnetic moment. So we can start to think of the particle as really a very tiny bar magnet generating a tiny magnetic field. And what's amazing is that different molecules have different types of magnetic fields. So if we interact with these fields, we can actually get a signature of that molecule. So say we have a mixture of 100 different biomolecules or so. By interacting with the magnetic fields that are in that sample, we can actually characterize and quantify all the different types of molecules in that sample. And what's great about magnetic fields is that they permeate through different types of matter. So this lets us measure things like glucose, cholesterol, vitamins, thousands of different metabolites completely non-invasively. And if we miniaturize this technology, we can actually make all these measurements in real time. So what we're working on right now is miniaturizing this type of non-invasive technology into a wearable device, something on the scale of a watch or a ring that someone can wear and constantly measure all these different metabolites. So I wake up every single day super excited to work on this problem because I realize that our health is one of the most important and valuable assets that we have. With Synex, people with diseases like diabetes and heart disease can better manage their conditions, and people all over the world can take a step to becoming a better version of themselves. And that's a future that I'm looking forward to. Thank you.